Welcome to New York Got Game.
All right, we're back with another edition of New York Got Game. Got a pretty busy show this week. We're going to move on with our top 25, but we also have a guest joining me to talk about somebody who the Knicks might be able to sign with their final roster spot. Look, we're not going to waste any time. Let's get right to it.
The Knicks are heating up.
Okay, before we continue on with our top 25 Knicks in the last 25 years, we got to talk about the Knicks roster. And a lot of talk through the summer, and more recently has been, what are the Knicks going to do with one of their final roster spots? How are they going to spend the last bit of money they could on free agency with the veterans minimum? Who should they give it out to? There's been a lot of names that have been thrown out there, but now there's a new name that has entered the conversation, and that is Malik Beasley. Now, a lot of Knicks fans remember him as a sharpshooter for the Pistons last year, and he just recently was in, or at least appeared to be, some hot water with an FBI probe into him with gambling. But now, the FBI no longer has him at the center or target part of that investigation. So now, there's open the possibility that he can sign with the Knicks. And joining me to talk about that possibility is my guy, Shawn Hardie. You know him from Knicks Film School, and he joins me now. Shawn, what's going on?
I'm good, Dexter. Good to see you again. Good to talk to you. Always love talking Knicks with you.
Yeah, man. Always good. So I guess we'll start here because I think if you asked most Knicks fans at the beginning of the summer, they would have thought they had no chance of signing Beasley, that this was not a possibility for them to get Malik Beasley, one of the best shooters on the open market free agency. Now that he is no longer the target of this FBI probe, you would think that his name is now back up at the top of the unrestricted free agency list. Shawn, what do you think about the Knicks' pursuit of Beasley? Because we've heard some reports from Ian Begley, from Stephen Bondy here at the Post, that the Knicks have done their due diligence. They've looked into Beasley and whether they think he would be a good fit here. What do you think about the Knicks potentially signing him, and do you think he would be a good fit with the Knickerbockers?
So he would be a good fit. As you and I discussed earlier on KFS Study Hall, the Knicks should not be in the business of signing non-shooters, and Malik Beasley shot 43% on 13 attempts last year, so clearly he's a shooter. So the Knicks are doing the right thing by doing their due diligence, checking to see if he's available. The problem is I don't know how much playing time he'll get because the Knicks rotate. I mean, the Knicks right now have a set 9-man rotation. There are 9 guys we know that's going to play: Brunson, Hart, Cat, McCall, OG, Mitchell Robinson, Gershon Yabusele, Jordan Clarkson, and Deuce McBride. So that's 9 guys right there. So if the Knicks sign I'm about to call him Michael. If the Knicks sign Malik Beasley, how much minutes is he gonna get? And I say that because Malik Beasley's sole purpose for this season is to sign a long-term deal. And obviously that's probably not going to happen this year. So he needs to go to a place where he is going to be able to score it, to perform at a level that will get him the long-term contract that he most likely would have gotten if he didn't get caught up in all the in this FBI investigation for gambling. So I think he'd fit. Like, I always say you can never have enough shooting, especially in today's NBA. I'm just not so sure how much playing time he's going to get. Like, is he going to, will he be fine getting 12 minutes a game? 15 minutes a game? You know, last year he averaged 27 minutes a game. Cutting that in half because you're trying to fit him into a 10-man rotation, I don't know if that makes the most sense for him. And so I don't know if he's going to be in orange and blue next year.
Yeah, I love that you brought up that point, right? Because there's 2 things when you're looking at the Beasley situation here. One, obviously, as you just mentioned, is the minutes. The other is the amount of money that the Knicks can offer him. Obviously, just the veterans minimum. There are teams out there that can offer him more. However, with all that being said, and you and I discussed this when I came on with you earlier on the KFS Study Hall, it's, okay, yeah, but some teams have cap space. How are they going to use it? And then I think the other thing is he doesn't have that much leverage here, right? He wants what you said, which is he wants the minutes. He also would like to get paid, but there's only limited ways he can get paid. So I think the other thing, and the reason why I say he doesn't have a lot of leverage, Shawn, is some people are going to be concerned about the fact that he was part of this FBI probe, right? He's no longer a target. I also want to be clear, no longer a target, not the same as being cleared. Those are two very different things.
Yes.
Would you have any concern if you're the Knicks front office about signing him, considering his past and that he was a target as part of this FBI probe into this gambling investigation?
I wouldn't be, based on what I know, and I know obviously there's been some reporting that he's had some financial troubles, that he's owed some people some money, and because of those financial troubles was given as a possibility as to why he may have allegedly partaken in the things that the FBI was investigating. With that said, I mean, Malik Beasley has been in the league 9 years. His next contract is probably his last big contract. So I would think that he'd walk a straight line, and he would be a team guy, a good locker room presence, and do whatever is asked of him by whatever team he plays on. And listen, we know Malik Beasley is really good 3-point shooter, kind of streaky, not the greatest defender, right? So he has a clear role that he's carved out in this league, and he needs to maximize that role if he wants to get paid. So I'm not concerned. I mean, I'm not concerned about him any more or less than any player that wants to play in New York City, where there's a whole bunch of, let's call them, distractions and things that and there's a lot of fun you can have, right? So listen, at the end of the day, if he wants to get paid, whether it's in New York or whether it's in, Indiana or Detroit or Brooklyn or wherever, Dallas, wherever, like, I think he'd be the last person I'd worry about in terms of, like, off the court issues or being a hindrance to the team. And quite frankly, if let's say he signs with the Knicks, which is going to be the veterans minimum, if he acts up, it's nothing to get rid of him.
Right. It's a low cost. It happened. And look, the reporting out there has been, and this was done by Ian Begley, that the Knicks have looked into him. They've also looked into the possibility of him being suspended during this season. And they've seen that, it seems to be quiet on that front. So the market is open to sign him. But like I said, what is that market? But if it's not Beasley, Shawn, the question is also going to be, who should the Knicks sign with the last veteran minimum option that they can give out there? There's a lot of names out there. I already know how you feel about Ben Simmons, and you know how I feel. That's a no. We don't need to do that. Are there any other names you would like to see? I think, listen, if the Knicks can get Beasley, I think you and I both agree that would be a huge win if they can get him as a shooter. You figure out the minute stuff later. Is there a bit of a logjam in the backcourt with him, Deuce, and Clarkson? Yeah, sure, but you'd figure that out. It's a good problem to have. But are there any other names that you would like to see the Knicks look at or try to sign in terms of giving out that last veteran minimums contract?
Well, okay, so let's assume, for what's and giggles, that the starting lineup is the one that we've heard that rumored that's, it's Mitch, Cat,
Mitch, Cat, OG.
Mikal. I was blanking on OG's name. OG, Mikal, and Brunson, right? So then your bench is going to be Josh Hart, who's a wing, Deuce McBride is a guard, Jordan Clarkson is a guard, Yabusele, who is a big, a 4 or 5. Do you want to sign a third? Do you want to sign another guard? Maybe you want to sign a front court player. The thing is, the players that are available at this, I mean, today is August 24th, which is also Mamba Day. Shout out to the Mamba, rest in peace. The front court players that are available, if you're a free agent at this point, it's kind of like it's slim pickings, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. Landry Shamet's name's been thrown around. I wouldn't have a problem bringing him back. We discussed Seth Curry. I mean, it's a name, quote unquote, but he's a little bit older. Honestly, those are really the two. Like, for me, it's more about the players I do not want them to sign. I do not want them to sign Ben Simmons, as we discussed. I don't want them to sign Russell Westbrook. Precious, love you, Precious. I don't think we can bring him back here. Don't want Malcolm Brogdon because of his injury history. Al Horford played in the 2007 national championship game. Um, like at some point, Father Time is
Look at you
undefeated.
out here being an ageist. I see that.
Hey, listen, Father Time is. Listen. I'm older than him, so I can make that joke.
Fair.
Father Time's undefeated, even though he obviously performed very well for Boston last year, and also is the worst kept secret that apparently wants to go to Golden State. But then again, at the same time, you know what? I wouldn't mind Al Horford because again, if he signs a vet minimum, but he's not gonna sign a vet minimum. Like he's trying to get paid somewhere, right? So the names that are available right now, I'd say I'd look at Landry Shamet, I'd look at Seth Curry. Obviously we spoke about Malik Beasley, but that's really it. Like I'm looking at these names of these people that are available now, and it's like Delano Banton, Garrison Matthews. We spoke about Alec Burks earlier. I mean, again, he's more likely to take the vet minimum at his. He's been in the league 14 years. But those are the names I'm looking at. I heard someone on the internet talking about Bol, and I really wanted to just block them expeditiously because it's like, what are you? Guys like Bol and Bills and Ben Simmons. The idea of the player is better than the actual player. Like, do not try to talk yourself into a guy like Ben Simmons who can't shoot, doesn't want to shoot. Like, you can't have your point guard in the dunker spot or a guy who handles the ball in the dunker spot. And that's especially on a team with Josh Hart and Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah, can't have it. Can't have another non-shooter. Bol, you mentioned.
Don't do it. Dexter.
No, I'm not going to do it. I'm just saying I see. It's like we talked about earlier. I see the idea for people. Athletic, big, can stretch the floor with the shooting, but can he really defend 4s and 5s in this league like you need him to? I would say no. Yeah. See, you know what I'm gonna say? When I have to talk myself through it too much, it's not good. We don't have to do this.
Let me tell you a story.
Okay.
I was in Phoenix, December of 2023. It was a work trip, and we took clients out to a Suns game. They were playing the Warriors. It's actually the game where Draymond gave Nurkic the roundhouse and they got suspended, and then he got the indefinite suspension. So end of the first quarter, I believe Vogel was the coach at the time. Yeah, Vogel inserts Bol for like the last minute and a half of the quarters, and I was like, oh, this is probably I'm gonna put him in to save someone from foul trouble, so he'll play like the last 90 seconds, and then he'll be out the second quarter. And finish the first quarter, and then to start the second quarter, Bol's back out there. And I said, oh, okay, I haven't been paying attention to Bol. Maybe he's turned the corner or something like that. And those first 2 minutes of the second quarter reminded me why Bol doesn't play very often. I'll just put it like that.
Sometimes that happens.
But dudes see him hit threes on social media. They see highlight clips of him hitting threes and crossovers, in garbage time, whatever. They say and he's like, to your point, he's tall, he can shoot, stretch. Like the idea of someone like him, a stretch 5 who could protect the rim and hit threes or what have you, rebound. But then again, if he could do all those things, he would have been drafted like 3rd, not where he was drafted. So,
or if he could do all those things and was doing the NBA, he would be playing more, and that's another thing there too. So we'll see how that goes. Listen, there's going to be some interesting options. I think Landry Shamet could be, and I'm doing air quotes if you listen to this, safe play, but he's a guy who's been in the system, can help you shoot, can give you a little bit of something on defense. It's not bad. Look, do I think it'll be nice if the Knicks get Malik Beasley? Sure, but I think we have to see a lot more in how the market unfolds. We don't know what he wants. We don't know if it's playing time. We don't know if it's money. There's a lot of things that go into that. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. But listen, at least gives us something to talk about over these last couple of weeks before we get to training camp because, look, it's slow. We're talking about the last roster spot on the Knicks right now as we end August and go to September. It's slim pickings, Shawn, in the free agency market. It's slim pickings for Knicks content. Just saying.
Listen, you're doing a top 25 Knicks the last 25 years.
You guys are
thing.
too.
Yes. But I'm glad the conversations are. Listen, we've come a long way from. I remember some off seasons. Like, do you remember the off season where Julius Randle, Obi Toppin, whatever, went to Gaucho's gym and lost, and people were up in arms about that for like a week and a half. Like,
yep.
I was like, is that where we are? I got one name for you before we wrap up.
Oh, go, yeah.
Especially since it's the 10th roster spot. Gary Payton II.
So he was on my list of free agents they should sign with the last roster spot weeks back ago when I did this with my guy Brian Fonseca. I like him. A little undersized, 6'4" guard, but listen, good defender. I like always having another good guy defender on the team. Not a non-shooter, right? Not a non-shooter. Will shoot, pretty adept at hitting the corner three. Would like if he shot above the break threes a little bit better, but you can't have everything. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be mad at it at all. He's a guy who could come in, give you some energy at times. Now, here's the other thing. This is about this 10th man that we're talking about. Are you going to be fine some nights knowing you're not going to play, Shawn? Right? That's the thing. And I think Mike Brown, you mentioned it earlier, you think that he will likely play 9. I think we'll definitely see that. Maybe he plays 10. I don't know. But if you're playing 10 and you're adding another guard here, you're not playing Pacome Dadier as another, wing or 3-4. Now you're going to have a really small team. So who they sign or don't sign is going to be very interesting. Do they go with a big? I like that you also brought up the possibility of a big. I think that's very possible for them going forward. I'm not mad at Gary Payton II, though. Not mad at that at all. Can't be mad.
Former Golden State Warrior, familiar with Mike Brown. Mike Brown was assistant in Golden State for a few years. The old head coach would absolutely love Gary Payton II.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Great, good defender. He's a dog. But to your point, he will, I was looking at stats, last year he took 1.5 threes a game, shot 32%.
Yeah, doesn't shoot it a lot. Doesn't let it fly.
Doesn't shoot it a lot. So, but like I said, good player, and again, also 10th man. I mean, he played 15 minutes a game last year. If he's coming on a vet minimum, but then again, listen, we brought Campaign in on a vet minimum, and Campaign helped us win the playoff game, right? So, he'd have to be ready. But that's just the name I was thinking about. Because other than that, when it comes to the guards, the bigs, none of these names really I'm not moved. Let's just put it like that. I'm not moved.
We mentioned Ben Simmons. We didn't even mention Russell Westbrook, and I know there's gonna be some Knicks fans that throw that out there, but I don't think he's also. I'm gonna keep this really brief. I don't think he's willing to play 10th man minutes, is what I'm saying. I don't think that's gonna happen. But we'll see what happens. It's gonna be very interesting with Malik Beasley and also the last roster spot for the Knicks. That's my guy, Shawn Hardie. Shawn with the W. Check him out on Knicks Film School. Shawn, appreciate you always, man, coming through on New York Got Game. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Dexter.
The Knicks are on fire!
All right. You know what the Knicks fans have been waiting for as we continue along with this top 25 Knicks of the last 25 years. Last week, we went from 15 to 11. This week, we're going to go from 10 to 6, so we're moving right along. And coming in at number 10, look, this is one of my favorite Knicks, one of my favorite basketball players of all time. And he ended up playing for the Knicks, grew up watching this guy in Brooklyn. That is Stephon Marbury. Played for the Knicks for 4 seasons from 2004 to 2008. And I will never forget the day this man was traded to the Knicks, because it was a whole big thing about him coming home. I remember where I was, campus, University of Pittsburgh. I just woke up that morning, and my boy had left me a voicemail. Shout out to my best friend, Anthony Slater. He left me a voicemail about this, because, this is before Twitter. I'm kind of showing my age here a little bit. There's no Twitter to get the news, so he called and let me know that he had heard the news, I believe on WFAN, and the Knicks had traded for Stephon Marbury. And this was a big deal, because Stephon Marbury, no doubt, is one of the best basketball players to come out of New York City. Absolutely the best basketball player to come out of Coney Island, for sure. And one of the best basketball players to ever come out of Brooklyn. And like I said, in NYC, you could say he's arguably one of the best New York City hoopers of all time. He's not better than Lou Alcindor, Dream Abdul-Jabbar, but you know what I mean. One of the best ever. And in terms of playing the point guard position, there's been a lot of great point guards that have come out of New York. Look, Steph's numbers were pretty great. 18.2 points per game, 7 assists per game with the Knicks, shot 44% from the field, just under 35% from downtown. And look, hometown hero, it was a rocky era. There's no doubt about that, right? To clashing with Larry Brown, to everything that went on with Isaiah Thomas. But this was a guy that put up numbers, played hard for the city, knew he had some mental health issues at the time of his tenure here with the New York Knicks, and then left the NBA and found a lot of success over in China. And anytime I see Steph now at the Garden, you've seen him a lot here during the playoff years, he's been very happy. He's in a great place, promoting his sunglasses brand. He's a fan of the show, so I appreciate Steph in that. But it was great to see a hometown hero come home. That was really great to see, and to see him in a Knick uniform, wearing that number 3. It was great. You wish things were better for him, and he had got the Knicks into being a winner. That didn't happen, as I said, very rocky era with the Knicks. But when I think about him and how much energy he brought to the city, I definitely think about his iconic moment as a Knick. To me, is absolutely that game winner he had against Utah. And I remember that. You get the pass from David Lee, and he goes coast to coast with a great crossover on Mehmet Okur and finished for the layup. I mean, that's a great moment, and the crowd was so pumped. And listen, if you remember the Knicks during that era, there was not a lot to cheer about at all whatsoever. But that was one of the moments and one of the big shots there by Stephon Marbury. So Stephon Marbury, always salute to him. Native New Yorker, fellow Brooklynite, one of the best to ever do it. Didn't have a lot of wins in a Knick uniform, but meant a lot to the Knicks in terms of coming back home and trying to get the franchise back to a respectable way. It wasn't during his time, but as a Knick and the impact that he had on the team in his time there, you can't forget about that for sure. Now, coming in at number 9 is somebody who I think might be a little bit surprising for some of the Knick fans, and I might have him higher up on this list than some other people might have. But I think this person is a very, very underrated Knick. This is a very recent Knick, too. I'm talking about R.J. Barrett. Played for the Knicks for 4 seasons, 4.5 seasons before he was traded. Look, this was a guy who had steady production over his 4 full seasons with the Knicks. Strong playoff moments in 2023 where I wanted him to show that he could play. I felt played in 11 games the Knicks played during that playoff run, played really good in 7 of them. Was very good for the Knicks in that Cleveland series, a little bit up and down in the Miami series. But I don't think he gets enough credit for being one of the best players, not just for the Knicks in that time, but in his draft class. When you think about the draft class for him, and he went 3rd overall behind John Morant, who was the 2nd overall pick, and Zion Williamson. When you look at that and look at him in draft class, he's one of the best players out of that draft class, if not the best. Now, some people will say, oh, it's John Morant, and John Morant's more talented than him, and I wouldn't disagree with him. But when you look at R.J. Barrett and how available he's been, and was he a superstar? No, but consistent numbers. Look at the numbers in his 4 full seasons with the Knicks. 18.1 points per game, 5.3 rebounds per game, 2.8 assists per game. Listen, this guy was solid. Was he that superstar that some people wanted? No, but a solid pick at number 3, and you trust him more than Zion Williamson right now. He's available on the court more than Zion Williamson and John Morant. It's really not even close, and he's been consistent. You know, does he have a ceiling where he probably could be a borderline all-star? Yeah, that's probably where R.J. Barrett is, but you could do worse at the 3rd pick. He's one of the Knicks' better draft picks in their history. Again, understand that he didn't become a superstar, but when you look at him, he was a solid player that the Knicks got good return on, and getting OG Anunoby as they packaged him along with Emmanuel quickly. And I think R.J. Barrett deserves a little bit more respect put on his name for what he did in the Knicks uniform and being solid, and what he's been as a young player since coming into the NBA, which is simply solid. He's also been solid for Team Canada, but when I look at what he did with the Knicks in his 4 seasons and how he grew and developed and eventually started getting to the line more, you saw the confidence building and all that stuff. And I think obviously for him, his iconic moment doesn't have a playoff moment, but it came against Boston. And I know that made a lot of you happy. You're going to remember that game-winning shot he had against the Celtics off glass and in. Crowd goes nuts at the Garden. I mean, that was the biggest shot of his career. A great moment for the Knicks. Anytime you get a game-winning shot against the Celtics, you gotta love that. I mean, it's just an iconic shot, and fading away to the right and going off glass. I mean, a little bit of luck. The bank was open, but you gotta have that sometimes. And it was a great moment for R.J. Barrett. And as I said, underrated, really fantastic Knicks draft pick. Understand that he's not with the team, but when you look at some of the picks the Knicks have made in the last 25 years, there's no doubt that he is one of the best of them. And that moves me on to number 8, which, talking about great draft picks, you got to mention this guy. Great draft pick, not a great ending to his Knicks career. That's Kristaps Porzingis, right? 2015 to 2019. First round pick in the 2015 draft, 4th overall. And look, we got to keep it real when we talk about Kristaps Porzingis. I will say this is not revisionist history. I saw Kristaps Porzingis' name come up in draft boards that year. I had looked at him. I loved the fact that he was a 7-footer. He moved well without the ball. I thought it was a great pick for the Knicks at that 4th pick. And a lot of people questioning that pick by Phil Jackson. And I understand what the Phil Jackson tenure was, and rightfully so. But Kristaps Porzingis, he was a unicorn like KD called him. 7'3", could shoot the ball, could move well without the ball, could put the ball on the floor if he needed to. And you saw his rise. You saw the potential as a Knick, his shooting ability, his size, all that. All-Star in 2018, made the All-Star team, but then only played 48 games that year because he had that injury that really hurt, right? And he was trying to come back and be the same after that, but then his legacy was hurt because of how he clashed with the front office and his brother and all that stuff. But when you look at that, even if you look at how that went down, and at the time when the Knicks traded him to Dallas, I thought it was a terrible trade. Now, it all worked out for the Knicks, and they were able to rebuild and retool, but I did not like the trade. I thought he was one of the best Knicks draft picks of all time at the time they drafted him and the way he was ascending. And that still is true. Still is absolutely one of the Knicks' best draft picks of all time. He finished 2nd in Rookie of the Year voting in 2016. Made that All-Star team that I talked about in 2018, right? The only selection in his entire career. He's never made another All-Star team again since that, right? Hurt his knee, as you talked about, played 48 games that season when he hurt his knee, but he averaged in that season, All-Star season, 22.6 boards a game. Throughout his Knicks career, 17.8 points per game, over 7 rebounds per game, 2 blocks per game. Very, very underrated defender in terms of protection of the rim. Shot 36% from 3 as a Knick, over 43% from the field. But one of the things I think about with Kristaps Porzingis in terms of an iconic moment is his toughness, because that was questioned a lot with him, right? People thought, okay, he's going to be soft. He's another European big that can't play tough. And if anybody remembers his rookie year, he had a moment where, Dwight Howard gave him the business in the paint. A pick and roll, just yammed it on him. And it's not a good look for the young man. Got dunked on, but you know, it's the NBA. You're big, you go for blocks, everybody's going to get dunked on. But what I love from him was the next year he came right back and gave it to Dwight Howard in the ATL, yammed it back on him on an and one play that had Joakim Noah hyped up, and you just saw the potential from him. Like 7'3" guy, put the ball on the floor, could attack the rim, and was fearless. Because that's the one thing about KP. KP wasn't scared. He wasn't shook. There was no shook ones here. And that really was his sort of welcome to New York, showing the fans his toughness as he was growing up. But Kristaps Porzingis, one of the ways you look at a modern big, we talked about Danilo Gallinari and his shooting before, but Kristaps Porzingis was sort of the evolution of that. And again, he's at number 8 here. So one of the Knicks' best draft picks of all time. You wish it had ended differently. You wish he had been a Knick a bit longer and could have been part of the resurgence that we've recently seen. It was not meant to be. But KP, you get your flowers here on New York Got Game. Now, at the 7th spot, got another big man, Tyson Chandler. Played with the Knicks for 3 seasons, 2011 to 2014. Defensive Player of the Year in 2012. He was the anchor of the best Knicks team at that time since the 90s in that 2012-2013 season, right? And this was a guy who gave it his all on defense to guard anybody 1 through 5. You could switch everything in it. He was a monster on the glass. I mean, an absolute monster on the glass. This guy would get back taps. That's something I always think about when I think about with Tyson Chandler. The back taps that he had to keep possessions alive, to constantly have rebounds. It was just really, really impressive with what he was able to do. And one of the things I always think about him is that he was so good on the glass, right? Just so good on the glass. And he put up monster rebound games. I mean, you could think about over 20 rebound games he had. You think about the block shots and protecting the paint, but the 20 rebound games he had, and he had quite a few of them. And, his moment, the one game that stands out is he had a 28 rebound game. 28 rebounds, folks, in a game against the Warriors in 2013. In that game, he had 13 rebounds in the first quarter. 13 in the first quarter. That's how much of a monster he was in the glass. And I mean, he truly transformed the Knicks defense. And obviously coming over from the Mavericks when the Knicks signed him as a free agent, he brought that defensive culture over there. Was an all-star during that 2012-2013 season. Finished 13th in the Defensive Player of the Year that season, but was on first team all defense, which kind of doesn't make sense when you think about the voting there. But for his Knicks career, averaged just over 10 points a game, averaged just over 10 rebounds a game. So averaged a double-double as a Knick, 1.2 blocks per game, and then shot a whopping 63.8% from the field. Because for Tyson Chandler, a lot of it was dunks on alleys. He was a fantastic lob threat, amazing on putbacks, amazing defender, and always brought the energy. I mean, you just had to love the way he played on putbacks and the velocity he played with and would get the crowd pumped up. I mean, he's one of the favorites for a lot of people on that 2012-2013 team. So one of the best Knicks in terms of protecting the paint, fan favorite, brought a lot of energy, rebounding monster. Tyson Chandler, a guy with an 18-year career in the NBA, one of the best bigs defensively of all time. And coming in at number 6 is a man who was a double-double machine and was a bright spot in a dark era of Knicks basketball. That is David Lee. David Lee, I also argue, very, very underrated player. All-star in 2010. Talk about those mid-2000 teams. Dark era for Knicks basketball. Dark era, right? And he's another guy where you look at the Knicks and some of the drafting they had at the time under Isaiah Thomas. A fantastic draft pick. First round, 30th overall in the 2005 draft. Finished 4th in Sixth Man of the Year in the 2006-2007 season. Finished 14th in that same category in 2007-2008 season. Like I said, 2009-2010 season, that's where he became an all-star. You saw a guy who was picked with the last pick in the first round become an all-star and develop into that. And when you think of David Lee, you think about him as a double-double machine. I mean, this guy got double-double after double-double. Fantastic hands, really good finisher around the basket, averaged 13 points, just under 10 rebounds a game for his career, shot 55% from the field. And when I think about him and just his hands and how good they were in terms of finishing around the basket, I know y'all remember this. His iconic moment, do you remember the game against the Bobcats? 0.3 seconds, the Knicks need a basket. Only can get it through a tip-in, and David Lee, with his great hands, able to tip and guide the ball in. I mean, it was the only way the Knicks could win. They get the victory. It's one of the best finishes in Knicks history. You see how far he had to tip it in? And he was an ambidextrous guy, do things with his right hand and his left, but that's just how much good control he has. Look, is he a, all-time, I don't know how high he's going to be on an all-time Knicks list, but he was one of the great Knicks rebounders and finishers and developmental stories that we have seen. And so, look, a lot of the last 25 years hasn't been that good for the Knicks, if we're being honest. But David Lee was really, really, really a bright spot in that time for the Knicks. And like I said, a double-double machine, bright spot in that era of Knicks basketball, and one of their best developmental stories, and just how he thrived and played well, especially when the Knicks ended up hiring Mike D'Antoni, and he still played well in his system before he moved on. So shout out to David Lee. Also made another all-star team with the Warriors later in his career. But David Lee was a fantastic Knicks draft pick, fantastic player, and always will be beloved by Knicks fans. You think about him along with those teams of Wilson Chandler and Nate Robinson. But his numbers speak for himself in the double-doubles, the all-star appearance, everything that he did for the Knicks. So you got to like the Knicks. All right, you did it. 10 through 6. Now we are in the top 5 as we are moving along with this list, the top 25 Knicks of the last 25 years. We will not have a list for you next week. There will be no episode next week during Labor Day weekend. We'll be back for the week after that. So you're going to have to wait till September to get the top 5 Knicks of the last 25 years. That's going to do it for this edition of New York Got Game. Special thanks to my guest on this one, Shawn Hardie from Knicks Film School. Also got to thank the people that worked on this show. Producer Erica Block, associate producer Nick Federico, editor Eduardo Guerrero, and production assistant Tommy Cohen. I'm Dexter Henry. We'll catch you next time on New York Got Game.
And thanks for watching New York Got Game. Boom shakalaka.